guys doing? How you guys doing? Today was a relaxing day for me. I feel like I got like sick, and I'm pretty sure it was COVID, but I never got like the full like check mark, and people were literally like, yeah, the tests don't work on this new strain of COVID, and it's like, I talked to some people, and they were like, this is kind of what COVID felt like, and I was like, oh, it kind of felt like that, so I think it could have been COVID, but in either case, I've ended up with a persistent cough, and today was like the first day where I kind of feel like it's going away. And of course, as I'm talking about it now, I'm like, there it is. That persistent cough definitely existing inside of me, right? Reminding me, hey, did you know that you're immortal? That your life could end at any moment, and we are here to end it at any moment. So today is actually going to be going through and seeing some good news. I feel like the midterms, let's anchor this conversation in what I feel has happened. I feel like the midterm elections have happened, and the red wave didn't occur, right? That the GOP especially, and prominent voices on the right have been saying that there's going to be a big red surge. And there's even polling data to show that it was possible that there was going to be this big red surge. And everybody's talking about how there's going to be a big red surge. And it didn't happen. Just straight up, red surge didn't happen. Like, the Republicans are probably going to tip over and take the House. But in all honesty, it doesn't really change anything, right? And because of that, I feel like it's put people in a good mood, you know? I feel like people are in kind of a good mood. And so now there's a little bit more like, hey, there's some good news to talk about. You know, it's not all doom and gloom. We're not collapsing into overt, like, Christian fascism. Right? Just banal corporatism, right? So we don't have to put up with all the faux Christianity and all the faux nonsense, right? Like, we're still a secular, corporate-dominated society. Hooray! Hooray! Hey, Grinning, how you doing? I almost want the House to go to Republicans by a tiny margin. Watching the nutcases withhold their vote will torture Republican leadership. I mean, I just don't think it matters that much. Like, I really don't. Like, nothing is going to fundamentally change. Like, they both work for the same people. They both have the same objectives. Like, they don't really care about much of anything except lining their own pockets. Like all of the systems that come out of the House and the Senate and all of this, all of them are just methods to enrich themselves. That's all. It's just like literally, if they were passing bills that were just saying the give money to John bill, like if I was the the congressman and I was like, we are signing a bill into law that will just give John $100 million. You know? People will be like, well, for what? It's like, nothing. You're just going to give me $100 million. Right? That would actually be better than a lot of the legislation that they actually pass. Right? Because a lot of the legislation they pass is like, we're going to give $100 million to Joe Kokomo from Blokablo, right? And he's going to build nuclear-tipped missiles that we're going to drop on defenseless children, right? We're gonna create a whole drone army. So it's just excuses for funneling money one way or the other with these like horrible ancillary side effects of like war and devastation. And that's true whether it's Democrat or Republican at this point. So it's still good news, though, because I see it as a cultural win. That this is still something of a litmus test for how the culture is doing. That, like, the red represents, like, this is a rash, right? This is like a red boiling rash, right? And if it passes this line, that puts America in devastatingly critical condition. But so you see that it's a bad case. You got a bad case of the GOPs. For sure. You got a bad case of the GOPs. But, so who knows? who knows what the result of all of this will be. And so this, I feel, has resulted in a lot of fun and silly things. Like, what's the one I really want to report on right away? China declares cryptocurrency transactions illegal. Bitcoin price falls. This, I know this was back in September, right? But it came on my radar today, and I was like, yeah, that's right. That's right. There is a place that's actually using, like, basic common sense and reason in its decision making. Declaring cryptocurrency transactions illegal, in my view, is like, oh, you're a civilization. Like, you actually care about building, like, rational systems that work. Because cryptocurrency, like, it was, like, really, really big, like, 6 months ago, it feels like. I feel like I was sitting here 6 months ago, and there were people in the chat being like, crypto's a great idea. And I'm like, no, it isn't. Crypto's the dumbest idea I think humans have ever had. Right? Hey, Tinker, how you doing, bud? And we're just like, yeah, let's make digital money that's connected to nothing. That certainly won't collapse into an oligarchic situation where we're, instead of our monetary policy even theoretically being connected to some kind of government system that we theoretically have say in how it operates, we're gonna instead shift on over to letting oligarchs have control of fiat currencies, right? Yeah, that'll be better. I like your CBC shirt. Oh, thanks. I don't actually support the CBC. Like, this is the funny thing. Like, I was given this shirt. This shirt was a gift, and today's the shirt. People say this to me all the time. It's like, you're a communist and you're supporting the CBC. I'm like, not really. Like, I don't hate the CBC. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sitting here being like, we should dismantle the CBC, like these fucking crypto fascists do. No, like, it's the state-funded Canadian media, you know? and I feel like as long as you stand there and go, yeah, it's state-funded propaganda. It's a propaganda system, obviously, like any other state-funded propaganda system. But I think we're better off with it than without it, right? Like, the alternative is just let the oligarchs have complete control of the narrative in our society. Nah. Nah. There's a big Bitcoin site that went under. Yep. There was an 8 billion hole in their finances. Yeah, probably full of thieves. Yeah, of course. Cryptocurrency, the whole idea of cryptocurrency. Like, I love this dude. Crypto tycoon Sam Bankman-Fried lost 94% of his fortune overnight, making the biggest one-day wealth collapse among billionaires on record. Fantastic. Literally everybody looked at him, looked at crypto. Anemone, wonderful to see you. Wonderful to see you. Yeah, Twitter, of course crypto is crashing because people have finally looked at it. Like, people, and not like the rubes, right? The whole structure of crypto has always been try to find a bigger sucker. That's the only thing. It's just a Ponzi scheme. It always was, right? And you had people like Warren Buffett. You had billionaires that were starting to say, like, this crypto isn't anything. Like, it doesn't produce anything. It doesn't make anything. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't achieve anything. Like, what is it for? Like, sure, it's an interesting toy and an interesting thought experiment, but it doesn't actually make anything. And so it's not really a good investment because it doesn't create anything, right? And these guys started to say this, and then I think, like, the mass of the public has finally been like, oh yeah, investments are supposed to make things. And then you do have, like, China declaring cryptocurrency transactions illegal is not nothing, right? That's not zero. It's like a huge group of people that are just like, get the fuck out of here with this. And it's finally starting to just collapse the whole thing. It's just finally starting to happen where people are just like, oh, what's the point of this? I mean, it's like I'm watching a fidget spinner craze, you know, that, like, there was a moment when everybody was like, gotta get a fidget spinner, and or like Pogs. Like, Pogs were a thing for a second where everybody was like, yeah, Pogs are the greatest. And to me, like, the whole cryptocurrency craze It's one of those things where I'm just like, oh yeah, we really haven't grown up. Like, if the kids were talking about this, if there were kids walking around being like, oh, we made a cryptocurrency, bro, and we're on the digital net wave trading this cryptocurrency amongst ourselves, and oh my god, you won't even understand how many Pokemons I can get for the Bitcoins and the Dogecoins, right? No. I will never, ever belittle the name of Pogs. At least they're a thing, right? They're something that you can take and hold and look at and use, right? They are actually a physical, tangible thing that exists in the world, and so they have some kind of merit associated with them. Cryptocurrency is just worthless. Like, it's literally nothing. And, yeah, Pogs. Pogs! Remember Pogs? And so if the kids were doing it, I would be like, oh, this is just like Pogs and fidget spinners, that's all. Right? But a bunch of adults got involved in it. Like, can you imagine if adults were walking around being like, fidget spinners, bro? That's what I view this all as. And so now it's finally collapsed because no one's buying it anymore because everybody's gone, oh, this is nothing. This isn't for anything. But the blockchain, bro! Who gives a fuck about your goddamn blockchain? Like, literally, I love it. Like, blockchain is literally just a system that is a ledger. It's like, this guy trades to this guy. We wrote it down. That's blockchain. And these guys are like, you'll never understand this earth-shattering, world-changing, unbelievable technology. It's like, literally, Bill gave Joe $5. Blockchain. Like, bro. So it's all collapsing. Good. Get the fuck out of here. Cryptocurrency. I hope the people who made a bunch of money and scammed a bunch of people lose all their wealth. I hope everything that can be bad for them goes bad. I hope they stub their toe on something. I hope the people they grifted out of the money think that they were betrayed, because they fucking were. Like, what a scam this was from the start. And like, and that's the real thing about it, is that there are a group of like true fucking believers, right? Like this Sam Bankman-Fried guy is probably one of the true believer types, right? Because he got caught, right? He got caught, lost 94% of his fortune, right? That doesn't happen if you're a grifter. Like, if you're actually like, this is a grift, we're in a Ponzi scheme, and bring it. Oh, sure, I'll buy that for a penny and sell it for $1, right? Like this guy gets caught with his pants down, probably because he's a true believer, but it just shows you, we've got a bunch of fucking adults in the room believing in nothing, believing in literally nothing, like literally holding an empty hand and saying, look at the thing. And we're just like, oh, shit. JJ, how you doing? How you doing? I had a pet rock. Oh, wow, pet rocks. It was my mom's pet rock. The person that created pet rocks said that I bet I can get Americans to buy anything. And mission accomplished. The trouble being, of course, is that the pet rock already exists, so us millennials and Gen Z types can't just pick up a rock and put a smiley face on it and sell it to someone, right? Like, that's what I love about these boomers. They're all just like, you should just innovate something. It's like, you already made everything. Like, everything that can be made, you did, right? Like, the boomers showed up and picked up all the low-hanging fruit, right? All the fruit that was on the ground. Right, the boomers walked through the orchard and picked up all the fruit that was on the ground. And then Gen X came around and picked all the low-hanging fruit, you know, and then start crawling up and getting the fruit higher up. And then us millennials show up and we're like getting the very last stuff at the very tippy top, which we gotta like climb the tree in order to get. And now Gen Z's showing up, the orchard's empty. Us millennials are standing there with a single basket. Gen X is standing there with like a truck full. The boomers are standing there with like fields of fruit. And the boomers go, yeah, you just gotta pick fruit off the ground. And that's what's happening. Oh, Jesus. What a fucking world we live in. have we talked about the Bank of Canada saying unemployment is too low? Oh, did they say that recently, Mark? Let's look it up. Not quite yet. So much going on. Bank of Canada unemployment rate too low. They said it today, eh? Low unemployment is not sustainable and it feeds inflation. Wonka wonk 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 wonk. Literally, they just come out the front door and they go, some of you are going to have to be homeless. There's too many people making too much money from us holy billionaires. Some of you are going to have to live in the streets. The country's low unemployment rate is not sustainable and contributing to decades-high inflation, Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem said during a speech in downtown Toronto Thursday. Speaking before students and researchers at Toronto Metropolitan University, the governor said the Canadian labor market needs to be rebalanced to stabilize inflation. Macklem said businesses struggling to find workers can't keep up with the demands for goods and services in the economy. So, like, what is it, dude? Which is it? Like, it's this classic Nazi shit, right? It's this classic Nazi shit. Businesses are struggling to find workers, but there's too many workers. No, yeah, we absolutely know what we're doing. Well, they absolutely do know what they're doing, actually. That's the truth. The tightness in the labor market is a symptom of the general imbalance between demand and supply that is fueling inflation and hurting all Canadians. Last month, the Canadian economy surprised forecasts by adding more than 100,000 jobs, while the unemployment rate held steady at 5.2%. The strong job numbers came after 4 months of losses or little growth in unemployment, right? I don't care about job numbers. I never have. Because when you actually crack it open and like start to look at it, you find out very quickly that you can basically just make whatever claim you want. Oh, you worked 30 seconds, so you're employed. That's the same as a full-time job with benefit. Yeah, this guy was standing in a cafe, picked up a wrapper off the ground and threw it into a bin. And so that's the same as a guy that works at NASA. Like, that's basically the shit that's going on. So it's all worthless. There's no, like, any data that's coming out of the government, any data that's coming out of corporations, anything, they are literally making it say whatever they want. And so there's just no point. Like, I remember I was listening to fucking Destiny, these fucking debate bros, and they started to get into, like, employment data, and they started talking about the different types of employment and the different types of things. And of course, Destiny doing his classic, like, arrogant, like, you're so stupid, and I'm going to talk really fast thing. And the whole time I was, like, listening to him, I'm like, bro, like, you're literally saying out loud that there's so many different ways to interpret the data without recognizing that makes the whole thing irrelevant, right? That if literally you're just saying, like, oh, anybody who's employed for 30 seconds is the same as this, right? Or you're not creating categories, or if you do create categories, and so you just make the numbers say what you want, right? So get fucked with all of it. Macklem says policies that increase the numbers of workers available to work would help ease inflation. These people are nightmares, eh? Like, these people are genuinely nightmares. Like, they do not value human life at all. Like, at all. Like, this is like nightmare-fueled demon shit. Like, we're just gonna throw some of you out into the streets and make the populace generally more desperate, so that you'll accept suppressed wages. It's literally what they're saying. As economies around the world slow in response to rising interest rates, Macklem said Canada will fare better than other countries in part because of strong immigration levels. That's certainly not going to blow back on us, right? There's no such thing as far-right elements looking at immigrants and scapegoating them for the benefit of seizing power. That doesn't ever happen. Like, And what's so funny about all of this is they're still not talking about inflation for what it is. Just rich people raising prices because they can. Like, that's all. Like, it's a system of extraction. Of course they're extracting as much wealth as they can in this period of time. Right? They want to make workers desperate. They want to make everybody just accept unemployment. They want this. This is what they want. And they're telling you it's what they want. That's the best part. Like, that I think the funniest thing, the funniest transition I've experienced in my life was transitioning from, like, there's an underground cabal of Illuminatis who are secretly controlling world events from behind the scenes while erecting a subterfuge in front of us. And now I'm just like, no, they just openly tell you, sure, there's a plan and there's like a group of people, but they're not shadowy. We know who they are. They're right there, right? And they openly, publicly say these things. It's just that, and the subterfuge that exists is that the media doesn't report it. That's all. Like, or certainly doesn't actually attempt to clarify or make clean. Like, where's the journalist standing up to Tiff and asking Tiff Macklem, so, Mr. Macklem, does this mean that there's going to be a spike in unemployment and a spike in homelessness? Does this mean that under your tenure as Bank of Canada manager that there's going to be an increase in homelessness? Like, there's nobody asking that question, right? Because if you ask that question, you'd be shown the door, right? That's how it works. You'd never actually be allowed to ask Tiff Macklem something like that. It's probably something he doesn't even think about, right? Like, these people don't think about the homeless. They don't care. Like, those are subhumans. We'll throw cops at those guys, right? New workers will have new incomes, and that will add to spending in the economy. That's why increasing supply, while valuable, is not a substitute for using monetary policy. Like, these are just, like, garbage statements made by clueless boobs. Or at least boobs that are, like, covering for the billionaire class, right? Like, at what point do we actually say, hey, have you noticed how the wealth of the billionaire class went up during this period of time? In some cases, literally doubling. Hey, have you noticed how the corporations are making more profit now than ever? Have you noticed that? Are we gonna maybe, like, talk? Are we even gonna mention that? Is that even gonna come into the thing? Oh, I wonder how they made all that wealth. Oh, well, I guess we'll never know. What a real fucking mystery. What a real fucking mystery. It only makes sense if you accept that billionaires are sacred and shouldn't participate in any of this, right? That they're completely allowed to raise prices, they're completely allowed to do this, and you've got to find solutions that don't include not letting them do that. That's all. Like, as soon as you just concede that we should not raise taxes on billionaires or tell them or put price controls in, right? As soon as you concede any of that, then sure, this makes a type of sense, right? Like, just like Jeffrey Dahmer standing up and being like, yeah, I have to kill those people. The voices in my head said so. Like, that makes a type of sense, right? Yeah. No. It, like, like, to combat inflation, but it's not to combat inflation. It's to allow inflation to continue. Like, that's literally what it is. If they wanted to combat inflation, they put in price controls and tax the billionaires. That would be really combating inflation. Like, that would be the real way to combat inflation. Like, this idea that the primary source of inflation is some sort of, like, oh, the world economy and then the supply chains and oh my goodness, it's literally just billionaires raising prices. That's all it is. And maybe those billionaires have this, like, mindset of, like, well, this is happening and this is happening and this is happening, but, like, so? Like, we've ceded our economy to nightmare psychopaths, and we're just, like, supposed to be like, yeah, what they say is going to be completely normal. When Jeffrey Dahmer says he needs to kill people because the voices in his head say so, yeah, you know what? That's a good point. That's a real good point. Like, no. Like, you're tuning into the wrong place if you want me to have any sympathy whatsoever for the billionaire class. Like, this story right here is the best news I've seen all day. Maybe all year, in fact. Just like, sweet. A billionaire lost 94% of their fortune. Fantastic. I hope it's Elon Musk next. I hope that we start seeing articles of like people like Elon Musk, because Elon Musk's entire empire, like his entire empire is based on speculation, right? Like Tesla is only valuable if it is capable of producing what it promises it can, right? And if investors suddenly go, that's not happening, like I'm getting out of this, then it's over, right? And I hope it happens. I hope that Elon Musk just becomes some loser and we all forget about him because he's just like a worthless boil on the side of the society. And that's true of Zuckerberg. It's true of, like, fucking literally Zuckerberg is this billionaire walking around because he has a website that used to just be the fucking phone book. Like, ooh, whoa, we should definitely give this guy control of what happens in the society in a serious kind of a way, right? Fucking literally, like, just, oh, we just digitized the phone book and this guy gets to fucking control it? Fuck off. Fuck off. I find all this to be just fucking annoying as shit. I hope the billionaires collapse. I hope that, and I hope they commit suicide and shoot their families. Like, I hope the whole thing fails for them, and I'll laugh about it, because fuck all of them. Like, fuck this whole grifting bullshit. And the reason why sycophantic losers like Jeff, what the fuck were you, like Tiff Macklem, are standing up and saying these things, like, we've got to plunge people into desperation to combat inflation, is because he's sitting there jerking Musk off. Like, that's all he's doing. Like, that's all he's doing. If he actually wanted to combat this shit, if he actually wanted to combat inflation, they would turn to the billionaires and be like, hey, stop. And you know how I know that's true? Because there's fucking literally countries in the world that are doing this, right? I love this story. This I'm literally reporting this as a good news story. I hope we see more of it. Authorities seized home towers at Evergrande's Resort Island to rental commercial use. In Hong Kong, 40 residential buildings of China's Evergrande's Group mega resort project on Hainan Island, seized by the local government, will be completed for rental housing, service apartments, and commercial activities. Fantastic. Like, fantastic. Take properties away from the capitalist class. Stop pretending like they're competent or capable or intelligent, or even that they know what they're talking about, right? Like, here in America, I think the worst aspect of what I see happening in America is, you want that link, Anemone? You got that fucking link. Absolutely. The worst thing that's happening in America is that we've got a bunch of people who are clueless, illiterate boobs walking around still pretending like they're knowledgeable, even though they've been wrong about literally everything. Like, imagine being like an economist like Larry Summers, who like oversees collapse after collapse after collapse, including like the 2008 financial collapse. And then they turn around and they say, like, well, this is what I think, and we're all supposed to go, whoa, I can't believe it, like, as if they have any credibility whatsoever. There's no fucking credibility in all of this. Like, I don't give a shit about what any of these guys say. I don't care about like, and when they stand up, I assume that they're standing there with like a poison-tipped dagger with like foam coming out of their mouth, being like, what we have to do is spike unemployment and destroy millions of people's lives. And then the billionaires will be able to be safe in Jeffrey Epstein's sex island. Like, that's what I hear. Like, that's what I hear. I don't know about you. Like, I don't know why we need to listen to these guys and be like, yeah, well, that's a good point that Tiff Macklem made. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. People are foaming at the mouth psychos. Like, that's what they are. And it, like, I don't think they're capable of rational thinking. I don't think they're interested in being capable of rational thinking. I think they're interested in sucking the cock of their boss and being a good yes man. That's what I think. And so when you go talk to like your like normal economist types or guys that are just working schmoes and they tell you what they think, well, always remember that they're just glugging on the cock of the guy right above them. Just being like, yes, sir, whatever you say, sir, absolutely, sir. And then just turning around like a fucking NPC and just being like, yeah, this is what we should do because my boss told me this. Glug, 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 glug. Do you need your boots licked? Like, fuck this NPC culture, man. Like, fuck this shit. Larry and the Rubin gang, they ruined the Clinton era. I would argue that the Clintons ruined the Clinton era. Get the fuck out of here, Tiff Macklem. So, socialist country, USA, CIA assassination, news, watch me save the TARDIS's life, bombing campaigns, civil war. Yeah, this is basically it, right? The United States causes problems and then reports on it as if it's helping. Fantastic. From Caitlin Johnstone, I don't want innovations which improve my shopping experience or make smartphones a tiny bit better. I want innovations which eliminate world hunger. Innovations which make it so people have more free time. Innovations which help humans live in harmony with our ecosystem. Yep, me too, Caitlin. Good luck with that. The capitalists have all the money and they're interested in destroying the planet. What are you doing, step intern? Yeah. I don't know, dude. Like, you know what? I'm not going to get into my opinions of Monica. I have controversial opinions surrounding Monica Lewinsky. You know what? I might as well say it. Like, so what? Sorry. Like, we literally spent, like all this time. There was, like, the Kenneth Commission or whatever it was. And everybody, even when I was a kid, even when I was, like, a fundamentalist, like, Christian kid, I was like, so what? Like, So Bill Clinton, the most powerful man in the world, right? Like the president of the largest thing on the world, had sex or got a blowjob by one of his interns. Like, is it scummy? Sure. Like, sure. Like, I buy into that argument. But like, so? Like, here's what I think what should happen to an adult when they're confronted with that story, right? Open up thing, Bill Clinton gets blowjob from intern. In other news, like I just literally, I'm just like, great. I think that's good for Bill. I think that's good for Monica. Hillary certainly knows, right? So she's fine with it, right? The only people who actually give a shit about this are like the delicate public, right? And especially now in retrospect, when we literally had a president that was going to Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile sex island and like raping women. Like we literally have a testimony from a person who said that when she was 14, Donald Trump raped her. And I like look back on it and I'm like, man, what an innocent time when we were all just like, the President of the United States got a blowjob from a grown woman consensually. And of course people will always stand up and be like, well, what about the power dynamic, Jonathan? The power dynamic is very, what about the implication, right? What about the implication, I don't give a fuck. I think you're reaching. Like, I think you're reaching. That, like, sure, Monica Lewinsky, probably now that she's, like, middle-aged, right, is looking back on when she was, like, a 20-year-old, right, was like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But, like, I feel like literally every person alive says that. That, like, yeah, when I was 20, I slept around a lot. And maybe I shouldn't have so much. But, those are the wild years. Like, literally everybody is doing stupid shit in their 20s. And Monica just happens to have the, like, distinction of doing stupid shit around the President of the United States. Like, where's the scandal? Like, literally, where's the scandal? Right? It's not like Bill, like, forced it on her. Right? Like, she's complicit in this, too. I don't know why we're, like, absolving Monica Lewinsky. Right? Uh-oh. John's tuning in. I'm wrong. Yeah. Yeah. One blowjob and all of a sudden you're the bad guy. And I just am like, I don't. Yeah. I just don't give a fuck. I don't care. Especially when, like, Bill Clinton was doing, like, very serious, crazy shit. Right? Like the bombing of Kosovo and Yugoslavia. Right? Yep. Cotton. Yep. The spirit of the age. Right? She is distinguished for doing things to the president. Correct, Jonathan. Correct. Well done. Yeah. Monica from the 90s? Smash. Yep. Here we go. The chat descends into chaos. You know what? It's Thursday, man. We're heading into the weekend, right? Like, and the weekend for me is work, right? So I wanna go in high spirits. I hope fucking Twitter collapses too, man. I hope Twitter completely collapses. I've always hated Twitter. I think that Twitter is worthless. It encourages the absolute worst type of communication and the worst type of behavior. That you're not actually having conversations. You're not actually learning anything. You're not teaching anything. You're not informing anybody of anything. Everybody on Twitter essentially becomes like a little prince who stands out on their little palisade and goes, "This is what I declare today," to like the masses of people who are supposed to just be like, "Oh, wow, this guy said the thing. We should cancel him," right? Like all the cancel culture that happens on Twitter is like a digitization of like picketing and a digitization of like pitchfork raising. We're like, cancel them. They said a thing we don't appreciate. And it's just like stupid. The whole thing is stupid. And now the only reason why I think that Twitter has value any longer, or if it ever did in the first place, is just to show everybody in the clearest, most crystalline, straightforward, and obvious way that Elon Musk is incompetent. I think that that's the little gift that Twitter has like come into the world to show all of us that this guy's not smart, that he is below average intelligence, that when he gets involved in things, he makes a fucking mess of it. Even the purchasing of Twitter itself was a fucking disaster, right? And now that he has it, he like comes in, ruins a bunch of people's lives, lays a bunch of people off, and then imposes a bunch of rules that he immediately has to back off on because he recognizes, like, through trial and error that, oh, there's a reason why some of these rules exist. And the guy's like firing people that he actually needs to keep the servers going. And it's just like this guy doesn't know what he's doing. And if this is how he's running his businesses, then he's shitty at what he does. And guess what? He is shitty at what he does. Right? Like, where's all these electric cars, Elon? Like, where's all these self-driving cars? Right? We also have a Hyperloop tunnel. Near as I can tell, all this guy is doing is siphoning resources away from the public. Right? Like, it's literally what happened in California. That the state of California stood up and said, you know what? We should build a high-speed rail. We should build a high-speed rail. They're doing it in China. We could do it. It'd be easy. We're the third largest economy on the continent. Let's do it. Let's go, California. Yeah. And then Elon shows up, convinces a couple of people that, like, that's a bad idea. Instead, you should give me all that money and I'll build a tunnel under something once. And then he didn't even do that. So now here we are, like 15 years later. There's no high-speed rail whatsoever. None of the projects have happened. Right? So he's just literally just an asshole that's gotten in the way of everything. And been like, yeah, I'm important. So literally the most unimportant person in America is this guy. Just like, if he was suddenly gone, like if there was just suddenly like an alien just came down and plucked him, and was just like, boop, and he went away, it would only improve everything. Why are we even responding to this person? Why have we built a society and why do we have a culture that insists that we actually need to do what this guy says when he's so clearly incapable, right? He's so clearly incapable of actually managing any of these resources or any of this stuff. If this guy was an elected official, we would have shit canned him 20 fucking years ago. We would have been like, what? Nah. Like, nah. Like, fucking Jesus Christ. And the fact that we can't shit can him, the fact that he doesn't need to respond to us, the fact that he can just do what he wants and just be like, oh, everybody thinks he's got to think I'm cool, right? Just makes him even stupider, right? Because he doesn't even need to think about how, like, he doesn't care how we think of him, really. Like, he cares about how he thinks we think of him. So when he goes out and wears like a Wario costume, he's like, yeah, the people will love this. Ho, 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 ho. If there was any solidarity remaining, 50% of Twitter workers would walk out. I mean, I do think that there is like part of the people, some of the people that work at Twitter believe in it, right? But like, I think the thing that's so fucked up about so much of this technology that we've done is all we've literally done is taken systems that already existed in the society, right? Like the telephone, the phone book, right? Digitized them and allowed private interests to like create like a series of just like, and so we actually end up with like a real like a Tower of Babel sort of situation. Where like we had a unifying project and then we created this like digitized system, and then instead of taking the digitized system and putting it on the unified project, we've destroyed the unified project and allowed segments to be torn off and all this kind of stuff. And so now you've got like Facebook and Instagram and LiveJournal and Tumblr and this and that. And then there's like a million apps, right? You got, are you on WhatsApp? No, I do Discord. Oh, you got this? Well, I got that. And I got this. And so now, I'm on Signal. I'm doing this thing over here. And so now organizing is impossible because everybody's doing all kinds of different things on all sorts of different stuff. And how do you even find anybody? You can't look them up in the phone book, right? So now someone's got to have a fucking website, and you got to have this whole thing. So you got to put in resources, and there's all this connection and all this. And now instead of just having like a phone company that is just like, would you like the phone? Here is a telephone. We'll just click that button on, and now here's your phone number. You've got the telephone. Now you've got like Rogers you got all of these different things and with all their different rule sets and all the connections, right? And so nobody actually knows how to connect with anybody and how to do anything. And literally my phone, anytime it rings, it's just a scam artist or some fucking bullshit telemarketer, right? Okay, Grandpa. Old man shakes fist at cloud. Look, I'm just saying that this digitization, this technological, like these aren't improvements. That they took things that were working, they took things that actually were working, dismantled them and made them worse, objectively worse. Like, objectively worse. Our systems of communication are objectively worse. That there's a reason why it's why the society is fractured, because the society is literally fractured. Like there's a reason why we can't connect with anybody locally or do anything like that, because all of those systems have been dismantled. Like, and controlled by dumbass morons like this, who are just like, who gives a fuck what this guy says? But apparently we're all like, Elon Musk, man, we gotta really pay attention to what this low IQ moron has to say about things. Well, he was gonna get fined billions if he didn't buy Twitter. I think it's a spite thing. If he had to suffer, so will the users. Yeah, really great that we have like something that should be a public utility in the hands of like a baby man. Ilona, the biggest scammer in the modern capitalist history. Yeah. Like, yeah. And it's very difficult for me to think anything else. Like, what does he do? What does he make? What does he produce? What does he achieve? What is it? And people, well, what about SpaceX, John? I'm like, you mean NASA? Like, I remember when that was called NASA, you know, when there was a state-funded department that was in charge of these sorts of things. Super good thing that we privatized it, though. So now instead of having one institution under which all resources are put in order to funnel towards singular objectives, we have like 4 guys all doing it all at once and constantly reinventing the wheel, not to mention getting in each other's way. We did it. We did it. Net rando. Man, we're getting all kinds of new people in this week, man. I love it. Twitter and Facebook are sanitary sewers. I just am like... And then you add in the layer of like, yeah, obviously billionaires are going to use these things for their own benefit. Right? Like, so instead of having like an institution that has a mandate that responds to the public, it's just some billionaire being like, how do I extract as much wealth from these people as possible? And so instead of them being set up to be like actual useful communication tools, like instead of it being the case that you like type in your interests and you go like, I am a fan of crockery cooking. Right? And you keep like going to crockery cooking websites and you keep doing that kind of stuff. And instead of the system being designed to be like, hey, you like crockery cooking. Did you know that there's a crockery cooking meetup that happens in your neighborhood on the 4th of every 3rd month? And you'd be like, I did not know that. Well, thank you, system trying to improve my life by making me connect with locals along similar interests. No, instead of that, it's, you like crockery cookware? Here's crockery cookware. Buy it at Amazon. We'll throw it at you from a drone. Like, instead of a system that's actually designed by people in order to be community-based and funnel people into local community meetups and local based on community interests or any of that, it's all just salesmen. The algorithm doesn't give a shit what you like because it wants to improve your life. It gives a shit what you like so it can sell you a product. And why is that the case? Because some billionaire is going like, this is how I can make the most amount of money for me. Because we're all supposed to give a shit about that. Because that matters. Like, congratulations. Like, just fucking as worthless as it could possibly be. Like, these things could be good. Like, they could actually work. But they need to be based on actually, like, connecting people with their local communities and their local... And, like, how great would it be if you... Let's say you're a local community. Let's say you're a local church, right? Let's say you're a local church, right? And you're sitting there being like, I'm really struggling to get people to come into the church, right? Well, why not do a search for what are all the locals in your area searching for on the internet? And after you sifted through all the pornography, right, like you would get to the point where you'd be like, oh, lots of people are interested in Magic the Gathering. Wow, lots of people around us are dealing with this Magic the Gathering. You know what we should do? We should have a Magic the Gathering night and bring these people in to hear about the Lord Jesus Christ. You know who was a real wizard? Jesus. But like, we've made these tools, right? Facebook and Twitter and like a lot of this, like YouTube and all this kind of stuff. They're tools, and they suck. They're not good at what they do, right? Like they're not designed to actually create local community, to connect you with anybody, to even get you to find anybody in like interested or any of that. They only exist to sell you products. And boy, does that suck. Boy, does that suck ass. That's the most boring, worthless shit of life. Yeah, people are nasty to each other. Results of competitive capitalism. Well, because we have to compete with one another. We're trying to be nice to one another, but we also know that we are ostensibly competing with one another. Right? And so it alienates each other. Like, if you're in the workplace, like, there's this, like, culture of backbiting and sniping and snitching. Like, the snitching culture is crazy to me. There's a department in almost every business that exists called human resources. It's like a snitch hotline for you to go snitch on your coworkers. You're like, I didn't like that they were just sitting there smoking a cigarette for 5 extra minutes. I'm going to go snitch to HR about it. Right? Real crab in the bucket shit happens in these places. We're like, well, when I try to take an extra 10 minutes on my break, I get shit on about it. But when he does it, everybody thinks it's fine. So I'm going to go talk to HR about it. Oh my God! Shut the what a dumbass culture. What a dumbass annoying culture we have. That we're just like, we're not viewing each other as like, oh, like we work in this a business, we should have some solidarity with one another and actually try. Like, it's just not possible. It's just like fucking not possible. And the only reason that anybody actually does is because the people who are involved are at a position where they're like, okay, this is fine. I don't need to compete anymore. Like, I'm at a place where I'm not gonna move up or move down or move around or move any of that kind of stuff. I'm just gonna be here, right? But even then, like, you got to deal with like, nothing's worse than having a boss who takes his job really seriously. Like, nothing's worse than that, because it's just annoying as shit, you know? Like, that they're just like, yeah, I have an owner, and I got to this position because I'm fine with that, and I said yes, sir, my whole life. And then you're in there being like, well, I have to have this job to live so I don't die, right? Because that's the nature of the system. And this guy's being like, wow, you need to wear nicer clothes, and why don't you smile more, sweetie? And you just kind of want to just give him one. Give him one right in his teeth. Certainly can't do that. I love this. I love this story. KFC, so Kentucky Fried Chicken, apologizes after sending a promotional message to customers in Germany, urging them to commemorate Kristallnacht with cheesy chicken. Now, I didn't know what Kristallnacht was before I heard this story. And when I first saw it, I kind of scrolled past it being like, okay, I don't give a fuck. But it kept coming up over and over again, so much so that I finally was like, oh, okay, what's Kristallnacht? Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, also called the November Pogroms, was a pogrom against Jews carried out by the Nazi Party's Sturmblattungen paramilitary and Schutzstaffel paramilitary forces, along with some participation from the Hitler Youth and German civilians throughout Nazi Germany on the 9th and 10th of November 1938. The German authorities looked on without intervening. The name Kristallnacht, literally Crystal Night, comes from the shards of broken glass that littered the streets after the windows of Jewish-owned stores, buildings, and synagogues were smashed. Enjoy that thought with a KFC cheesy chicken. Like, these people have no fucking soul. Like, have no souls. That they literally are like, hey, remember that night when we kicked in a bunch of doors and smashed with so much glass that we call it Crystal Night? And rounded up a bunch of Jews and did a pogrom while everybody watched us do it? We should remind people of that by promoting a chicken sandwich. Like, these are the people who are in charge of our society. These are the people who are in charge of our society. Like, this is not a minor faux pas. This is literally demonic. Like, evil. Evil, and the word evil does not even capture how, like, to me this would be like a free Indian scalp with every dinner. Like, That's the kind of crazed lunatic shit. I feel like, and do you guys think that things are getting crazier? Like, I don't mean crazier in terms of like more mass murdery, because we've always been fairly mass murdery, but just like, I just feel like things are getting more like crazy in a very distinct sort of stupid way. Like the other night I went really, really long because the New York Times wrote an article about how Hu Jintao left a room. And they wrote this whole fucking article about how like an old man left a room. And while I was reading it, I was really struck with this sense of like how deranged this was. Like how there's a word. I can feel the word. It's like floating around in my consciousness. It's not paranoid. It's not like paranoia, but it's in that family. It's this feeling of like overly, it's conspiratorial. It's overly analyzing. It's making nothing out or making something out of nothing. And while simultaneously like demonizing the target and just like while also being completely bereft of any sense of self-awareness. There's like literally a word for this. Of how we're acting, right? And it just feels like we're getting worse about it. Like, how does a multi-million-dollar company, actually get from the idea to promotion? That means that they like printed shit. And it went through departments, right? That it wasn't just one guy who like tweeted this out. Means that from the beginning to the end, there were likely at least dozens of people who had their hands on this project at one point or another. And at no point did anybody seem to say, is this evil? Is this like deranged? You know, I think it is deranged. Like, deranged is sort of the word that I feel like I keep landing on. Where it's just like they keep presenting themselves as if they're normal, as if they're rational and sane, but really they're just like deranged. Like, I think this might be the word. Hold on, I gotta get specific. Deranged meaning. Mad, insane. No, that's too simple. There's got to be more. There's got to be more than that. More definitions. Deranged. Throw something into confusion. Cause to act irregularly. It's not quite accurate. Because it's like... But it's definitely like... in the family. It's definitely there. Because it's like... How does this fucking happen? How does this fucking happen? Net Rando, Canada gave the Order of Canada to a Nazi SS. Yep, Peter Savarin. Yep, there are multiple monuments to the Galassia 14th Waffen SS in Canada. Yep, we've been reporting on that here, Net. Glad to see we've got an ally. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe. Patreon in the description. If you want to throw $1 my way, it gets you into the Discord. You've obviously never been to Florida during summer, John. Correct, John. You're right about that. In neuroses, I mean, sort of, like, I feel like there's going to be a very esoteric word that's very, like, that doesn't have common usage, that lives in the abstract, that, like, someone like Friedrich Nietzsche used once in, like, a fifth essay of some subtext in the back end, that is going to just absolutely encapsulate exactly the sensation that I'm talking about. Like, it's to move forward with the veneer of sanity while actually underneath it being deeply deranged. Like that I think is what I'm trying to capture. That we're supposed to look at it and think normal, but it's actually deeply psychotic. Like that, there's got to be something for this, right? Like this should be a movie, right? This should be a movie of, and it should be a comedy, right? It should be a comedy. That someone I would love to know who was the brainchild of this. How did this begin? And I would love to go through the process of actually seeing how did this happen? And was there anyone at any point when it was happening who was like, this is deranged, like this is absurd, we should definitely not do this? And then what happened to them? Should they exist in the first place? But chances are good that they were just like, wow, we should sell some chicken. What's a night that we can sell chicken on? Here's a night. Crystal, wow, Crystal Night. What a beautiful word. I bet you dollars to donuts they didn't even know what it was. I bet you that the people who made the fucking campaign were Americans, right? That they were just fucking Americans. And they were like, we need to sell a sandwich. Well, here's a Crystal Night. Well, that's nice sounding. It's commemorate the Christian nut with a cheesy chicken. I like it. Let's draw it up. Let's go. Fucking literally a Nazi, like a pogrom. Like straight up just kicking people's doors. Right? And we're like this soulless, demented. That's a nice word to use. Demented. The trouble with words like deranged, demented, neurosis, these sorts of things, is that I feel like they have the physical quality of them is quite obvious. You know what I mean? Like, if you saw somebody who was demented, you would immediately go, they're demented. But there's like a quality that like someone like Christian Bale's character from American Psycho. So I use the word psycho a lot as well. Like, he does a really good job of like creating a veneer, like a sense of competence, a sense of wholeness, a sense of no. But I like where you're coming from with that. I like where you're coming from with that content. But like sinister, manipulative, dishonest, misleading, Machiavellian all imply competence, right? That it's not only that they're psychotic, like demented or deranged or any of that, but they're also deeply stupid, right? And I like your comment, Grinning, by the way. You're going to settle on dumb. No, dumb's not right either, because it doesn't capture the, like, I think this is it. I think we're doing it. We're doing it. We're putting it together, which is, it's a combination of three things, okay? It's a combination of three things that it's got to include in a single word, right? So you see how difficult this is. It's got to include that there's a front of sanity, that when you see it, it's got this front-facing saneness about it, and normality, banality almost, if you like, right? But behind it is a deranged, demented psycho who is also extremely stupid, right? So Christian Bale's character in American Psycho, he hits two of them, right? Because he's got that good veneer of the front sanity while being a psycho, but he was quite smart, right? Like he wasn't stupid. And so like there's got to be a word for this. And if there isn't one, then we should make one. Like psychopathic dissonance, yeah. That's called fascism. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Just straight up just fascists, right? Like, just like that. And that reminds me of that, because the front facing part of it is like it's so trying to be normal that it becomes odd. Like all of the SS shit, like all of the like outfits and the costumes and the uniforms that they all wore all the time. It's like trying to make this normal, but they looked like crazy people. And you're supposed to like walk into a room and see a guy wearing like one of these hats, right? Just the hat alone, like this overly constructed hat. You guys know all that. You know the hats I'm talking about, right? That there's no reason for this hat to look this way. Nazi. I can't believe I'm looking this up. Hat. Yeah. Like, look at this fucking thing. Like, this looks like the hat that the skipper wore in Gilligan's Island. Like, look at how fucking stupid this thing looks. And these guys were walking around, like, the death skull. Like, and these guys were walking around just being like, this is a normal thing to... This is prestigious. We are prestigious people. Like... But, like, when you actually look at it, you really see very clearly and cleanly how fucking stupid it is. Right? That when they were walking around, they expected to be not only normal, but also respected. Right? Respected. The Pope hat has a bit of this. Right? Like, the Pope shows up wearing... Like, look at this stupid fucking hat. Pope hat. Look at this stupid shit. Are you kidding me? Like, a guy walks into a room wearing this hat, and we're all supposed to be like, yeah, it's a fucking normal thing. This guy's totally normal. There's nothing deeply deranged happening here. There's nothing deeply disconnected. Technically... It's called the papal tiara. Thanks, John. Thank you. No, you're right. Right. You know what? You know what, bud? Papal tiara. Thanks. Thank you, John. Thanks. Look at this thing. Look at this. We're fucking normal. Normal fucking thing. We're totally fucking normal, right? Guy walks into a room and instead of pointing at it and going, ha, fucking idiot, right? Instead of doing that, we're all supposed to be like, Ame tu mega biya, habi sabi abuba, amen. Like, so, it expects to be treated respectably. I think that's the closest. Like, all the banal and the normal and the front-facing insanity, I think that's what it is that it expects to not only be seen as normal, but also respectable. That the best people are wearing this, and the best people are this way. But it's also deeply psychotic, and it's the Catholic Church, so absolutely. Well, simultaneously, extremely stupid. Right? That's your perfect trifecta. And in the middle of that sentiment, of those ideas, is a word. And I don't know that the word exists. Although fascist... But the trouble is that I don't want to connect that word to a political ideology. I think that's the trouble I have with using the word fascist, is that I'd like to disconnect it. Because I actually think that there's lots of examples of this. Like Canadian Supreme Court judge's outfit. Like, shut the fuck up. We are the people. We are the people who are the most respectable people. Right? No. The best ones, though, are when we get to the wigs. I here am the Supreme Court of the Canadians. I here am the Canadian. I'm the leader of Canada. Here to tell all Canadians that the law of the Canadian law shall be leaded in the thing with the thing. We hitherto are a normal people. to be taken very seriously. Our laws shall be followed with all the decency and dignity that the crown and the gold permits upon us. In the name of Wayne Gretzky, Bobby Orr, and the great Canadian hockey team, the Ottawa Senators. Like, fuck you. Ever heard of the deathcore of Cree? We're about to, dude. Wayne Glensky. Death Corp of Krieg Warhammer. We're about to. Do not talk shit about the Great One! Hey. No one was talking shit about the Great One, John Smith. That we respect the Great One so much that we use him in our legal dissertations. That's right. All right, who are these guys? Is the name given to all Astra Militarum regiments that originate from the devastated post-nuclear death world of Krieg. It's like looking into the future. Oh, some puny room he gets. Oh, I don't know. These don't look like they're fitting for fighting. These boys look like they're fitting for smashing. Sorry, Milo. Yes, I know. I know the Orky boys got ya. I know the Orky boys got you. No. Hey. Okay. Hey, Milo. The trouble is that there's a dog also barking outside. And so Milo got alerted because of space orcs, right? As one does. But now he's barking because he hears another dog barking. And he doesn't need to bark, even though there is another dog who is also barking. I know it's tough. It's a good boy, buddy. That's a good boy, buddy. You're doing good. There's a good boy. My good little boy. All right. What we are going to see happen with Warhammer, I've talked about it before. It's definitely going to happen, though. Because Warhammer 40k was always satirical, right? Like, that the people who made it initially were making a satire. They were satirizing World War I, World War II, satirizing Empire, right? Sort of the pursuit of just endless war, the overt bigotry and the racism that exists amongst the powerful, like the God King Emperors and all this crazy shit. Every single time I read anything that's based in this universe, I'm just like, oh man, yeah, this is like total satire. But what's happening now is that it's shifting, right? That it's shifting away from satire, where the reader or the viewer is no longer supposed to be engaging with it with the understanding that this is critical of Empire, and is now turning into a vision, and turning into something that we are going, yes, this is the Empire. We are supposed to be like this. So it's shifting, and I think that we are, like, Warhammer and the Warhammer universe has steadily over the years gone from literally just being like a tabletop game to now it's got a good, healthy presence in the video game industry. It's a well-respected IP. Literally, they're making like the third installment of a Total War franchise. It's very successful. And they're going to start making movies and television shows because the eye of Sauron, the eye of capital, is always looking for the next thing to profit from. Disney is actually, like, running out of gas, right? It's actually running out of gas. Like, it can't exploit any of the old shit anymore, right? So it's looking around for what the new story is. It keeps fucking up its franchises. And I think it's going to turn to this. And I think when it presents it, it's not going to present it with this idea of, like, these Space Marines are fucking nuts. It's going to present it with these Space Marines, this is the front line of human civilization. These are the people who are protecting us. Andor is good? Okay, I've heard good things. Like, it's difficult for me to take Star Wars seriously anymore. I gotta be straight with you. Like, it's very, very difficult for me to take Star Wars seriously anymore. Like, it's pretty clear that the storytellers don't care about Star Wars. Like, the people who are making it don't care. That's become very obvious. And so, simply telling me that Andor is good, it's like, I'm gonna need more. Like, I'm gonna need more. Like, I'm not gonna spend the time, the energy, the resources, and I'm certainly not, like, maybe I'll put it on in the background while I do something, right? Like that's where I'm at with this. Like, it might reach the level of background noise to me, but like, what's so good about it? Is the Baby Yoda super cute? Like, don't get me wrong, that Baby Yoda was super fucking cute, but like, we made a burger to hit like the bliss point based on the perfect amount of sugar and spice and all the exact right ingredients to just jam in someone's face and be like, this is it. So you'll get fucking addicted to it and keep buying it. Of course, we did the same thing with Yoda. Like, we did the same fucking thing. We were like, yeah, here's an adorable little Baby Yoda. It just hits you right in the bliss point. Always an excuse with you, Lawnmower Man. I'm living in the ECU, Entertaining Comics Universe, Mad Magazine. Dude, I would go for like an upsurgence of Mad Magazine. I could go for that. Like, let's return to Mad Magazine, right? That Mad Magazine, like, Gen Z, without a doubt, is carrying in it a Dadaist spirit. All of there's this phenomenon that happens with Gen Z, and I see it all the time with their memes, where one of the most interesting formulas is they'll put forward a really intriguing sounding idea that's often like a video game culture kind of a thing, where they'll be like, Mario is they're releasing a Mario Kart Ultra Edition to be the next version after Mario Kart Deluxe. Google MK Ultra to learn more. Right? Like, that's a very, like, oh, some kid will be like, oh, Mario Kart, MK Ultra, CIA, MK Ultra, right? Learn something. And I love that. I love that. Every time I see it, I'm just like, yeah, good for you guys. Good for you guys. I've only watched Andor when on the Delta Vape. I don't remember much. Death Corp is basically nuclear Nazis, yeah. I got bored really quick in the first episode. If someone on here says it's good, I'm gonna watch it to the end. I don't know. I'm just not willing. Like, I'm just not. Like, I'm over it. Like, I just don't think these guys are capable. Like, and it's not to say that there isn't interesting things. Like, the entire world and the entire setup of the Star Wars universe is very interesting. Right? But the reason why the original Star Wars was so interesting to us is because it's about fighting an empire. And it's about living in a world that is dominated and controlled by an empire. There's something fascinating about that and mysterious. And the story is right in front of you. And I feel like the first iteration of it was very adventurous. It was very based in adventure. And now that we've gotten older, right? Like those of us that grew up on Star Wars and all this, I think we are hoping to see real stories, like something really, really interesting. And the new wave of stories that we got out of Disney, the trilogy was like literally a train wreck. Total, just Pulp Fiction garbage from, honestly, Pulp Fiction garbage storyteller. Like, everybody's like, Lost was so good. I was like, was it? Because it seems to me like they kind of just made that up as they were going along. Right? Like, yeah, oh yeah, the button. What's the button doing? Yeah, these are serious storytellers, so we definitely have to pay attention to. Oh, they all got off the island. Let's spend a whole season talking about how we get back to the island. We're serious storytellers. We know what we're doing. The whole Star Wars cultural moment sucks. I never took Star Wars seriously. The whole Star Wars cultural moment sucks. Yeah, I mean, there is that as well. Like, I get it though. Like, I do. I completely understand why people are into Star Wars. Like, there is something there, right? There's mysticism. There's mystery. There's fighting for freedom. There's the basic structures of good conquering evil. Like, yeah, there's good shit there. And I get why people glom onto, but it just, like, they just stopped giving a shit about it. I love this. The Death Corps is basically nuclear Nazis. John's like, no, they're not. They're clone-batted cannon fodder psycho conditioned to sacrifice themselves for the Emperor. Their literal existence is for sacrificing themselves to weaken their enemies. Commissars have to stop Krieg from rushing the enemy of the Imperium. Jesus Christ. Like, that's just nightmare fuel, dude. Like, Jesus Christ. Absolutely brutal. Absolutely fucking brutal. Alright. So if any of you come up with the word that I'm thinking about, of, like, I think the Pope hat really like captures it. It's supposed to be taken seriously, but it is actually desperately psychotic and completely ridiculous. And there's other things that I think about with that, like business suits. I think business suits are unbelievably silly. Like, unbelievably silly. That we're all walking around pretending like, this looks great. And I think it is unbelievably silly. You're wearing foam pads on your shoulders, and it's obvious that you are. You literally got a rope around your neck. You got a rope around your neck. You're wearing, like, the most uncomfortable pants that can be designed. And you're walking around indoors with a jacket on. What the And these are the people who are supposed to be the most respected. That if you're walking around with a suit, we're all supposed to go, oh, well, isn't this a well put together, snappy, dapper gentleman? Here's somebody who I can trust and take seriously. And I'm like, no, you absolutely should not take this person seriously. They're fundamentally lying to you from the very beginning, from the outset. The very first thing that a man wearing a suit does to you is lie to you. Yeah, the most bland piece of fashion to exist in human history, and we're all supposed to wear them. And it's like the necktie is the best part. To me, it's the best part. That, like, we've literally installed into our clothing a fucking noose. That we're all just like, and there's like a special way to tie it. So that you're always like, da 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 da, and then you end up with like a nice little knot that's just like right in between the little flaps to hide the noose that you put around your neck. But it's okay, the noose has got a color, and the color is what exemplifies the color. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, what is this? This is a noose is completely different compared to a Windsor knot, John. We're getting real technical up in here, eh? We're going to get real technical up in here. John is sitting over there being like, no. A noose is a strong, sturdy knot that you can hang a man with. A Windsor knot will break. A Windsor knot will break under that kind of pressure, Jonathan. You know that. I love that.
What was the favor? Hey, John, can you do me a favor? What was the favor, John? I'm sorry, I completely... Nothing suits me better than a suit. Yeah, full Windsor nut or you're a nerd. It's totally true. Like, it's completely true. Like, if you don't have the full Windsor, you might as well be like Gil from Simpsons. You know what I'm talking about. Gil from Simpsons. You know, this guy, right? Oh, Gil's gonna be eaten tonight. You want a reaction video reaction? What's the video, dude? What's the video? We're having a loosey-goosey one today. I'm gonna report on something, just so I can pretend like I'm doing my fucking job. We already did this. We already did this. We already did this. Oh, this is actually, like, legitimately good news. Dude, I'm in. Furry Apocalypse? I'm completely in. Is that on YouTube? Casino company Hard Rock to spend $100 million to raise employees' wages. Cheers and tears. That's how thousands of Hard Rock workers reacted when they learned their paychecks are about to get a lot bigger. As inflation surges and recession's fears lingers, Hard Rock International and Seminole Gaming will spend more than $100 million to raise wages significantly for half of its U.S. workforce, more than 10,000 employees. The increases are significant, more than 60% in some cases, with starting wages between $18 and $21 an hour for workers in 95 different jobs, including cooks, housekeepers, security public space, call centers, front desk attendants. In Florida, where the company's headquartered, some team members could get $16,000 more than the state's minimum wage, Hard Rock said. Yeah, dude, I'm with you. Like, these things are bullshit, but this is good. This is nice. We could have substantially reduced the total capital that we're willing to commit to our employees hypothetically, maybe given $2 or $3 an hour raise versus $6 or $7, Allen told CNBC, but I looked at it and said, let's be the leader. Let's be ahead of the curve. Allen said he wanted to show his appreciation. He's betting there will be a significant return on the investment, with coworkers performing at the top level to give guests a memorable experience. Gino, gotta appreciate that the bourgeoisie come with pre-made nooses. That's good. That's good. Always keeping it positive. Okay. John is gonna get us. So if this is terrible, John, everybody gets to shit on you. And those are the rules. I don't make them up. Get out of here. Get out of here. You're all tangled mess. All right. Here we go. Here we go. We got 8 people watching. We're doing... What are we doing? Furry Apocalypse. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's only 1 minute 24. This better have a big payoff, John. This better have a big payoff. Here we go. Here we go.
Flash kids. I think I love you, Bubblegum.
Oh, Dark Wolf. You, me, right here in Furry Forest. This is everything. They fell right into our big gay trap. Now, guys!
Their numbers know no end, brother! Brother? Avenge me, brother! Brother, avenge me! No mercy.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Question the first, how did you even find out about this? And question the second, why did you tell anybody to watch that? You know what? I'm glad I did. I truly am. I truly am. The world is nuts. We might as well be nuts too. That's why I actually love like all these Gen Z kids, man. They're nuts, and I love them. I love them. All right. Well, let's pivot away from that. We were talking about this a bit yesterday. Here's the proper article on it. How horny will Western society get before it's over? Dude, is everybody forgetting that there was a free love movement? Does everybody forget the free love movement? Like, I love it. Like everybody seems to think like America didn't have like a massive sexual revolutionary moment within like living memory, you know, like and I gotta tell you, like, go for it. Like, everyone should have sex with everyone. Like, let's just like get over it. Can I tell you how much better the society would be if just everybody got laid all the time? Like, if everybody just finally got laid and everything was, it would just take a lot of the tension off. I think there would be a lot of people who would be like, we gotta go round up the Jews and we gotta kill all the guys, and then they would get laid and they would be like, I guess they're fine. Like, I just think everyone's kind of pent up, right? They let us keep the horny but took the radicalism. But this is just it. Like, what's happening in this society right now is weird. It's very weird what's happening, right? That the internet came in and laid bare in front of everyone that we all love pornography, right? Like, it's just like, there's no argument. If you were to stand up and be like, I don't think people do care for pornography, I'd be like, I think that we have the evidence, you know, at this stage in the game. Like, maybe your type of pornography is not someone else's type of pornography, but like, people like seeing nude people. People enjoy sex, right? We do. But there's like a barrier that's like fallen, right? There's this very, very, very clear line of like, this can exist in internet space. And in internet space, you can have all of this kind of, you can see more nudity than the richest king in the world did for 100 years ago. Like, Alexander the Great has seen less nudity than your average 12-year-old boy, right? And that's just true. And like, that's gonna fuck up a people. Like, that's gonna create, things are different. There's different shit going on now. And I don't know that we know how to make, like, I don't think we as a people really know how to make the jump. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we know how to actually handle this. That, like, 100 years ago, like, you would see, like, a striptease show or something. Maybe you, like, hire a prostitute, right? Like, so the amount of nudity or sex acts or any of this kind of stuff that you would witness to, let alone participate in, were like very tiny because the opportunity was very tiny. But now it's like literally I could put one word in this bar right here. I could just put a word in right there. And there's a bunch of them. There isn't just one word. Like, there's a ton of words that you could use. And it's just going to be like, there you go. Right? And this is a Pandora's box. Haha, pun intended. But like, it is like a Pandora's box. Like, it's opened something up and unleashed it into the society. And I don't think we know how to handle it. And I think that one of the ways that we are responding to it is by whoa, like, we're pulling back. We're going, oh, okay, right? And it's making it it's adding to the falseness of our presentation to one another because like you're not walking around in the real world telling everybody how much you love pornography, right? Like you're not doing that. You're not showing people the porn that you jerk off to. Like nobody's doing that. Like there isn't like a culture of people who are like there's no like art galleries where you can like see the stuff that's on the internet but in an art gallery, right? There's this veneer, there's this separation, there's a cultural separation, there's like a deep embarrassment and shame around the whole thing, but we all know that we all have at least at some point engaged in it in one way or another, even if it's incidentally or accidentally, right? That we know it exists. It's so easy to participate in, and so we know, like all of the mystery and allure is sort of gone, right? That like literally like even this narrative of like quote unquote men don't know where the clitoris is. Like, what are you, fucking stupid? You don't know how to do a Google search? Like. This like forget about the idea of like we need to have like we should do sex education in our schools and all this kind of stuff. Like, what are you fucking talking about, dude? Like you want to you want like intricate detailed like maps like all that all exists. That all exists. People have already done it. You can find it. It's easy to find. It's shocking that you don't find it on accident. Like this narrative of like, does the clitoris exist? It makes sense that this would be a thing that men would not be aware of before the internet, but now here it is. Like fucking here it is, and if you don't know where it is at least, then you're stupid. Like you should stop talking. Like that's how fucking dumb you are. And like read a book. Like look up a website. And but now it's created this weird dynamic where like there's like this subconscious jumping to the chase, you know, that the relationship between the sexes has become oddly, I don't want to use the word tarnished, but that's the word that jumps to mind. Like it's been like the cards are on the table. We can't really obfuscate things anymore. There isn't like and more people understand younger that about like what sex is, what it looks like, how, like what people want about it, and you can't really pretend anymore. But there's like this really big desire amongst all parties to continue pretending as though the reason why we're talking has something else, like there's something else going on. Like when we're on the internet engaging with this stuff, we're being very honest with ourselves, right? We're being very honest with what it is that we desire, right? Like I don't think I'm embarrassing myself or embarrassing anybody else by saying that that's the truth, but we seem not capable of withstanding that level of honesty outside of that sort of false created lens that we exist in. I'm really struggling to articulate what I mean here, but it's just like everybody wants sex, clearly, but everybody doesn't want everybody to know that they want sex, right? Like that seems to be the dynamic that's in play, and I don't think that people know how to navigate it. Like, I don't think people know how to navigate it. Because it's too, like, it's too out there now. It's too prominent in the culture. It's too obvious. It's aggressively obvious now. Right? And so it manifests itself within the culture in very kind of weird, sparkly ways. There are weird little sparks that shoot up in the culture, like a character like Nicki Minaj, or Miley Cyrus like 10 years ago, right? Like, there were always sort of like sexual icons, but they've become yes, and it's self-awareness that's worrying about social repercussions. And the social repercussions are the weirdest thing to me. That's the weirdest thing to me. Here's this thing, internet pornography, that is wildly popular. Like, it's wildly popular. Right? Like, if you wanted to talk about enormous cultural revolutionary things that have happened in the last 100 years, internet pornography is on that list. And I think it's in the top 5 at least, right? Like, it is an enormous cultural revolution that we are just, like, not talking about. And the reason why we're not talking about it is because, historically, the people who have engaged in producing this kind of smut is become pariahs, right? Listen, John, I'm worried about my mother's opinion of me. But not just your mother, but like potential mates, potential suitors, right? But potential employers, right? And unlike some people, my mother loves me very much. Thank you, sir. But sex games still suck. It's like billions being left on the table. Yeah. No, you're right, Gino. Like, you're and case in point, right? Like, case in point. Right? Like, we still are not engaging honestly with, and I think we view that. I think this culture views sex very, very bad. I think we've got an inverted worldview on how we view sex. That sex is a requirement for the survival of the species. Right? It's literally how we propagate. And then on top of that, there are fun buttons built inside of you, right? There are fun buttons that you can't avoid. I'm going to get off this. I don't want to even look at this. Fuck you. Why did I close all my fun pictures? Sure, Gil. There are fun... I don't want to look at Gil while I talk about this. Sure. There are fun buttons built inside of you, right? The universe itself, creation itself, all of the forces of the universe have coalesced together to generate a species of people who have sex to survive and propagate, and also it's fun and enjoyable. But if you do it, you're a social reject, you're dirty, dingy, perverted, right? That if a straight man looks upon a picture, not even a living person, right? So that we avoid the quote-unquote male gaze conversation. But a picture that was taken by a woman with the intention for a man to look at it for enjoyment, that she is doing freely and you are enjoying freely, you're a pervert. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. Like, that to me is wild. And it's wild that we don't talk about it, we don't address it, there's this like childish snickering that comes along with this conversation, where we're supposed to like titter like little kids when if somebody talks about like forget about enjoying pornography. If somebody talks about viewing pornography, there's this like and I'm just like I just wish we'd get over it. Because I do think that the existence of internet pornography and the existence of all of this has created a has destabilized the society, has unbalanced us in a way that and we don't really know how to navigate this, and we don't know what to do about it. And we don't know how to communicate with one another anymore about things like sex. Nor are we aware of the profound impacts that I think it is having on the male psyche and the desire to even pursue relations. Right? That like it and it's destabilized the John, dude, I don't know about everyone wanting sex. Seems like it's a key component, but and of course there's always like your asexuals, there's always groups of people, like it always happens that way. Personally, I wonder if my chasing of sex was just seeking validation. And that's a pretty common thing, right? That's a pretty common thing. You hear that a lot. People are seeking sex just to seek validation. And I think that that's true. I definitely think that happens. Like I don't think that we should discount that whatsoever. But like, but that's still like just because you're saying you're chasing sex to seek validation, well, you're still chasing sex, right? Like you still want sex, right? It's just you're going one layer deeper, right? That you're attaching onto it a meaning that is special for yourself. That, and everybody has some kind of thing that they're attaching to sex. And yeah, everyone just wants to be loved, even if it's fake and momentary. And like, I think it goes even way more simple than that, right? Like, your body releases chemicals into itself that feels good. That I think it's as simple as that. Like I don't think you need to chase much. Like it makes people feel good. Is like, and if it's making you feel good because you're seeking validation, and then you get the validation, and even though you realize that it's fleeting, and like all that kind of stuff. Well, that's just the long form unpacking explanation of it feels good. Like, and if it doesn't feel good, you wouldn't do it. And I think that kind of is the expression of the struggle that I think people are having, is that because pornography exists, it's making the sex not as good. I think there's something there that I don't know how to unpack anymore, but it definitely is like pre-internet pornography. There's like it elevates sex and the sex act into a place that is special almost by definition. Even if what you were doing was like a one night stand, even if what you were doing was like, okay, even if you had like a bunch of fuckboys, like any of that kind of stuff, like it still means that this moment has a kind of specialness about it. There's something there. But internet pornography has kind of made it more mundane and made it more like common. That this event is one event of many events. That it's different in certain ways, but it's within the field, and everybody knows that everyone's engaging in this kind of stuff to some degree or another, in some capacity or another. And so it means that when the moment of sex actually happens, people are now having like a confrontation of ego in a way that like it's not special. Like it's good, it's nice. You're getting chemicals released into your system. There's all kinds of things happening, but it's not a magical Jesus Christ coming to save you kind of moment. Like it's not this like the illusion's shattered. Right? Like the illusion's shattered. That there's all these like sort of Pollyannish illusions that we have always had about sex and sexuality. You can literally go back to like the 80s. Watch like romantic comedy movies, right? Like there's this like love's first like true kiss, and like there's all this romanticism. And there's all this mythical storytelling surrounding not just sex, surrounding literally like a kiss, right? And like the whole narrative of you stay a virgin until you're married, and then you have this like miraculous, like all this kind of stuff. There's this mysticism. There's mythical storytelling that we tell ourselves, and it just doesn't exist anymore because it can't. And it can't for obvious reasons. Because fucking internet pornography exists. And people are like, yeah, there's no mystery. There's no mysticism. There's no I don't know, there's no falseness any longer. And so there's this I do think there's this so what I think is that people want it to have that quality, but they know it won't, and they know it doesn't, and they want to have this like grand connection with another person and like have like enter like a spiritual psychedelic state, right, and this kind of stuff, and it doesn't happen that way. It's not what it is. And I think because people know that it's not going to meet those expectations, which were always stupid. Like they were always silly, right? Like they always were not, it was never going to be like that. But now we know. And so I do think that it's putting people into kind of a position of asking themselves, well, why am I even pursuing this then? What is sex for? What is sex and sexuality in our culture in the face of this like looming force of internet pornography that is just like prevalent and persistent and fucking everywhere, like everywhere now. And like we just watched that little tiny clip that John had us watch. Hilarious clip. But it was like hyper-sexualized, right? Like hyper-sexualized. And that kind of thing, like not that long ago, would be considered like outrageous. Like there'd be news reports about it. And now it's just like, yeah, it's another fucking internet wank video. Like it's just like a funny thing with like tits, and that's fine. Right? Banned. Yeah. Like it like, and it would be like if it existed, it would exist in like a very small, like a niche, like those sorts of things. Like Fritz the Cat existed. Like there's always like that's always existed to a degree, but now it's in front of you, right? Now it's right there. You think about something like Game of Thrones, right? Game of Thrones was just loaded with sex and nudity, right? And I didn't hear anybody complaining about it. But it's like, and so I'm like really of two minds about the existence of internet pornography and how it exists in our society. Because on the one hand, like, sex and sexuality is obvious, like, it's fun, it's built in, like we literally are genetically coded to look at one another and find each other attractive, and to get horny over it, and to get to have these emotions, have these kinds of things. Like, it's literally like part of our very existence, an inescapable aspect of our reality, on the one hand. And so, like, if pornography exists, it's just an extension of that, clearly. And so where's the trouble here? But on the other hand, I do think that internet pornography has a kind of almost, like, it has a dehumanizing aspect, like, by its very nature, that when you're engaging in it, you're not engaging with a person. You're not engaging with a person. Adam, if you want to see the video, just Furry Apocalypse. That's the name of it. We were talking about Warhammer 40k, and then John had us watch that. Which, well done, sir. Like, it does have a dehumanizing effect. Like, you're not interacting with a person. You're interacting with yourself, right? And the people who exist not in front of you, but across time and space itself, and have produced what they're producing, probably for money. And create a performance piece that you are kind of tricking yourself into thinking is real. And so now, and because I think internet pornography is so prevalent, that sort of dehumanization of the performer, or of the object of our desire, I think has extended into reality. And that people, and I don't mean men towards women specifically, I mean, it goes all ways. I think that when people are engaging in sex, there's a very dehumanizing thing that's happening. And that that while we accept the Pollyannish sort of myth of, like, the human connection and all of that doesn't really exist, there is still, like, a respect aspect. There is still, like, an understanding that you're still a fucking person, right? And this sort of dehumanization, I think, manifests itself in how we socially reject. Like, if you're a porn star, right? You're a pariah, right? Like, you're not gonna be on the same podium as, like, a doctor, lawyer, engineer, like any of that, or a school teacher, right? You're not even on the same podium as, like, somebody who's just working in retail, right? Like, these, and it doesn't matter how high up the chain you go, and it doesn't matter how prominent you are, and it doesn't matter how successful you are. You're always just kind of a piece of meat to the society. And it doesn't matter if you pivot out of it and start to do something else. It seems to loom over. And to me, I look at that and think that that's extremely dehumanizing. What we do there. It's and weird as fuck. And weird as fuck. Like, I don't think we're gaining anything by it, certainly. And it's this classic sort of hypocritical behavior that we do in the West. Like, the non-pornographic extension would be how we say retail workers, like some burger flipper. Oh, a burger flipper should not earn enough to pay rent. but I am 100% going to eat the burger they produce. Like that's what we do in this society. And I think it's most prevalent and most obvious with pornography. That we're going to enjoy the product of your work, but we are going to reject you. And your opinion or your thoughts or your ideas or your basic humanity, is going to be stripped from you. And we're going to make it clear that that's the case. It's very strange behavior. It's a very strange thing that we're doing. And I really do think it's adding in like another layer of hesitancy. That people are attempting to connect with one another. People are attempting to, like men and women are attempting to navigate this, to try to find one another, to build anything, to live any kind of reasonable life. And now there's this like new layer and a new aspect to the navigation of each other's sexual compatibility that didn't really exist previously, right? Didn't really exist previously. And I think it's made things a lot more difficult for everyone. And while simultaneously opening up a lot of weird questions about how we treat one another and moreover how we treat ourselves. Like the way that humans perceive sex in society is fucking strange. It's very weird what we've done. It's very weird what we've done. Where we have this kind of puritanical you have to meet some kind of pure existence that exists in exclusively in the mythical sense. And as long as you can maintain the illusion of it, then you're considered above everybody else. But if we get evidence that you've done something, then you're a bad person. Like going back to the Bill Clinton getting a blowjob in the White Office or in the White House conversation. Like who actually gives a fuck about that? Like who actually gives a fuck about that? You know, it's weird that anybody cares. Like literally my response to it is okay, and like who got offended here? And yet it's supposed to like, and certainly like is this like looming thing that exists over Monica Lewinsky. So I just don't know what to say about it. And I think all of it is kind of tied up in being confronted by this, once again, this sort of consumerist culture of hyper individualism and the me. The only thing that matters is me. The egoism. And internet pornography kind of, that doesn't kind of, it directly assaults that egoism. And it makes it impossible to maintain the illusion that you matter the most, when what is true is that you are one of many. And I think that's very difficult. Like that's why there's this whole manosphere conversation happening where men are like, we want pure women. We want, like, what's your body count? Right? I see that all over the place right now. Like, what's your body count? As if it actually has an impact on the relationship that you could build with this person. And yet it's being brought to the forefront in such a prominent way. Like it's getting this hyper focus, because what matters to people who think that they matter the most, who have this hyper egoism, is that they can possess somebody, and that they have exclusive rights to possession. It's very strange culture. We're a very strange people this way. And yet it's like normal. It's supposed to be like completely normal. Anyway. Internet pornography. Here we go. I just did like 20 minutes on internet pornography? It's something that I'm desperately fascinated by the cultural impact, but I don't think we're having very serious conversations about it. And kind of lame guy. What? And I'm not sure how to have serious conversations about it. We've opened the Pandora's box. I don't think we know what to do. Yeah, so much is about power. I hate it. Yeah, it sucks. It's lame. But that's how humans are. We're attracted to power. Compton, wanting to pivot into cyberpunk. Mox is our best gang. Yep, very good. I'm just about to help the Moxes take over the tower. I forget the name of the tower. Clouds. Check out the writing of Alexandra Kollontai. Here we go. Well, and part of the issue that we're in is that this phenomenon is so new. Right? This phenomenon is so new. And so there hasn't really been much written about it, Highly prominent woman with the Bolshevik Party, first woman in history to become an official member of a governing cabinet. Oh, look, it's Anemone. She theorized about love and sex and all that. All right, okay. I'll take a deeper look because it's contributions to Marxist feminism. She opposed the ideology of liberal feminism, which she saw as bourgeois. At the same time, Kollontai was a champion of women's liberation, believing that it could take place only as the result of a victory of a new social order and a different economic system. She criticized bourgeois feminists for prioritizing political goals, such as women's suffrage, that would provide political equality for bourgeois women, but would do little to address the immediate conditions of working-class women, and was further distrustful that bourgeois champions of feminism would continue to support their working-class counterparts after succeeding in their struggle for general women's rights. Class instinct, whatever the feminists say, always shows itself to be more powerful than the noble enthusiasms of above-class politics, so long as the bourgeois women and their proletarian younger sisters are equal in their inequality. The former can, with complete sincerity, make great efforts to defend the general interests of women. But once the barrier is down, and the bourgeois women have received access to political activity, the recent defenders of the rights of all women become enthusiastic defenders of the privileges of their class, content to leave the younger sisters with no rights at all. Thus, when the feminists talk to working women about the need for a common struggle to realize some general women's principle, women of the working class are naturally distrustful. Yeah, that's a really great articulation of something that I've been seeing a lot recently. That women are fighting for equality, but there is no equality between the bourgeois and the proletariat. And so if you have equality as a bourgeois feminist, well, you still are in a class strata above the women in the lower class, right? Or in the working class, if you prefer. And Yeah, what a baller. What a champion. And what have I been saying all the time on this channel? Like, we got to get away from this conversation of identity politics, and we've got to focus on class politics, because if you don't focus on class politics and you only focus on identity politics, well, then you end up being told that it's great that you're gay, trans, asexual, minority, black woman, woman of color, you do all that kind of stuff. Show up to work on time. Right? Show up to work on time. You want to eat? Show up to work on time. There's a podcast called AK-47 by the author of Why Women Have Better Sex Under Socialism. That's a deep dive into her writing. It's really good. Well, I mean, I don't know. To me, it seems so obvious why women would have, why everyone would have better sex under socialism, right? Like, if you're destabilized, you're not going to be able to engage in, you're not going to be able to enjoy yourself. I think it's that simple, right? Like, if you're constantly dislocated, if you're constantly moving around, if you're constantly exhausted, you're constantly shifting from job to job, you can't find your feet, you can't get any security, and you can't get any security because the powers that be, people like Tiff Macklem, are actively producing a culture that destabilizes everybody. And so if you're constantly destabilized and you're constantly moving around and you can't get anything figured out, well, then you're certainly not going to be pursuing the enjoyment of sex, right? You're certainly going to put that on the back burner. That's definitely not where you're going to end up. You're definitely going to be pursuing other objectives and other things. And if and when you do interact with sex while you're so dislocated and so incapable of engaging in other ways, then you're going to gravitate towards the quick fix, which is internet pornography, right? It seems to be what's happened to lots and lots of people. And it's this salesman culture that we have, where capitalism tries to sell us solutions to problems that it generates, and then says of the problems that those solutions generate that those are externalities, or that those are a you problem, right? That's something that you need to fix for yourself. It's just a total fucking disaster. And what's the clear result of all of this? All the stuff that we're talking about, what's the clear result of all of this? Well, now we're in a population decline. Like, I really can't stress how enormous that is. Like, I think that's one of those things that's really, really on the, that's really not well understood within the populace. That, like, going into a population decline is like red alert crashing, like your system's crashing if you're going into a population decline. Like, there's a difference between like a stabilized sort of situation, or one where there's like a slight increase, and one in which there is like a decline, because your population is actually your economy. Like, that, once you cut through it all, and once you cut through all the bullshit, right? If you have more people, you have a stronger economy. Straight up. Like, if you've got 1 billion people and they've got 1 million people, you have a stronger economy. Just by definition. And this is not at all articulated or understood by any, like, I've never seen an economist actually talk about this or articulate this pretty straightforward and obvious principle that I see, that if your country or your civilization is in a population decline, that's like losing money. Like, your economy is like not shrinking in like, oh no, what will the billionaires do with their fake money dollars? But like, you're literally losing the ability to actually be productive and actually engage in the world in productive ways. Like, you can literally do less. And it's an enormous disaster. An enormous, enormous disaster, and a result of our salesman culture, where instead of attempting to resolve problems, we sell band-aids to problems. And that actually resolving the problem is a problem for our culture, because if you were to resolve the problem, then you can't solve it by selling them a solution, right? Yeah, they present it as people being a strain on the economy. Yeah, well, and there's all kinds of like, think about how fucking absurd it is that you look at homeless people and think anything other than, oh, we gotta fix this. Like, you know who is definitely not being a productive member of your society, right? Homeless people. And instead of saying, oh, this is a problem that should be resolved, we decide to moralize about it. We try to pretend as though it's individual failing. We try to do this, that, and the other thing, instead of just accepting that this is a problem to which there is a solution. And we just sort of accept a general drain on the system and then shrug about it. And this is over and over and over again. There are all kinds of systems that are like this. There are all kinds of systems that are like this. Like the prison system's like this. Like that in America they're turning around and turning it into like a slave labor situation. But it's not really working out. You've like removed people from your economy. And when you look at the structure of it, like American culture is quite literally structured to be as unproductive as possible. That you have like huge sections of the populace living in poverty on purpose, by design, who are by definition excluded from the wider economy, and who cannot be productive by the very definition. So you're literally making your civilization, making your country weaker on purpose because it doesn't directly benefit 5 people. Like, it's completely self-destructive. It's completely self-destructive. But when you live in a society where the only thing that matters is you, and if you happen to be a billionaire and you can literally just buy people to be your friends, right? Everyone around you is a yes man, and there's literally no one in your life who can stand up and say what you're doing is wrong and here's why, and you have to listen, right? Like, who could stand up to Jeff Bezos and say what you're doing is wrong and here's why, and have him actually go like, okay, whatever you say, like that he's not going to care. And in fact, he's just going to have you escorted out of the room. He's going to purge what you said out of his mind, because he doesn't need it. It doesn't matter to him. And he's just gonna keep surrounding himself with yes men who say, yes, sir, whatever you say, sir, absolutely, sir, you're right, sir, that's a good idea, sir, absolutely. And you know what you end up with? You end up with people like Elon Musk, who are just like dunder-headed idiots, destroying the society around them. Like, literally Elon Musk took over a company that was more or less functioning. Like, it was achieving what it was setting out to achieve. And in the space of like 2 weeks has completely destroyed it. Where now people are like, we're just not going to use this anymore. Like, great success. Great success. And we just are failing to recognize that if you want to build a strong society, and if you want to build a strong culture, or a strong civilization, a strong nation, you got to start by creating strong people. that your people are what matters. And you need to have educated people, and you need to have stable people. You need to have people who want to invest in the communities that they live in meaningful ways. But that's not happening. There's no such thing as meaningful community anymore. There's not like I take a look at the show The Office, right? And in retrospect, like The Office is one of the greatest propaganda pieces that has ever occurred. Not the British version, because the British version wasn't propaganda. The British version of The Office was actually a scathing indictment of office culture, and a scathing indictment of this idea that the people in your office are family, and that are good people, and that you're like the main character of the Office version, played by Ricky Gervais, was not only an idiot, but also very mean, very selfish, very very unlikable person, and yet was the boss of the place and ran the place. Why? Because he was a sycophantic yes man. And then when that transfers over to America, they basically turn the whole show. Like, yeah, sure, the boss is dopey and dumb, but ends up being likable. Ends up being somebody who you come to kind of understand his position. And see him as maybe a guy who's in over his head, but not mean. Not holding power over people. And then, like, literally the end of The Office, like the end of the whole thing, is this sense of like, wow, we really are a family here. And that the whole thesis of the British version of The Office is essentially turned over onto its head. And instead of it being an indictment of office culture, it becomes a celebration of office culture. That it's like fantasy porn for people. It's like for people who want to cope with being stuck in this shitty office environment. You know what's good? Doctor Who. You know what I like about Doctor Who? I like that it is like a never-ending show. That it doesn't matter if it comes off the air. We kind of know that it's going to come back. Yeah, David Tennant was great. And every single time they do a new iteration, a new actor, I like that it's somehow different and that it's all one character. That's what's so... And the Master and all that. Yeah, it's all one character. It's all one... Like Doctor Who is a god. And we've got this like kind of trickster style, resourceful, sort of smartest man in the room character in Doctor Who. And it's like we're following the adventures and the story of like a god of some kind. And that each character, like the actors of Doctor Who have actually talked about this, where they were quite frustrated because there wasn't really an arc, because the arc of the character of Doctor Who is actually much larger than each individual actor. And so, like, I think I mean, you've got very clear switch from like David Tennant was the Doctor Who was trying to save the day, right? So he was the Doctor. He was like the James Bond Doctor coming in to let's solve the problems and save the day, which leads to the Matt Smith Doctor, who is kind of about running away from those responsibilities, right? That he sort of realizes that, or theorizes that solving these problems isn't actually solving these problems, and I'm just going to ignore them and run away from them, and then that results in the Peter Capaldi, which was all about taking responsibility and all about facing the lore and facing the tough challenges. Peter Capaldi was like the grizzled doctor who was facing up against all of this stuff. And then the most recent Doctor, when they announced that it was going to be a woman, I thought to myself, good, let's go. It's already established in the lore. And then I thought that they didn't trust it. That's what I really think it came down to. Why it didn't really work. Why she wasn't really like. I thought that the actress was very good. I thought that she was a fine doctor. I thought she captured the spirit of the Doctor. I thought that she played the part very well. But it's pretty clear to me that the writers didn't really trust that the audience was going to come along with it. And so she wasn't really given very good material. They gave, usually the Doctor has one or two supporting characters, right? The companions. And those companions will switch up and all this kind of stuff. But she had 4, and they were very much like Team Diversity Squad, so that it made the decision to make the Doctor a female. It made that decision way less impactful and way less, because instead of it being like about Doctor Who, it became kind of a Team Diversity Squad. And it became cynical. And it became obviously cynical. Very, very, very quickly. And then it was like episode after episode after episode that was all about like diversity and let's praise diversity and all that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think every Doctor Who character has episodes that are like that, but it became so overwrought that it became obvious that it was being done from cynicism, and it became kind of paint by numbers to a degree where it was embarrassing. Like that's kind of where I land. Like it's just like, so like they might as well have had like JP Morgan Chase come out and be like, we apologize here at JP Morgan Chase. We're not going to do anything about it except put this white woman in front of you. It just had that kind of like deeply cynical attitude about it the whole time, and it made it very difficult to watch. And that deep cynicism is in all of our media right now, and it makes it very difficult to want to participate and want to watch. And I thought it was a big missed opportunity, because she was a good actress. I think she could have carried the show. I think they could have given her really interesting material. But instead of that, like, you had episodes where it was like, we're gonna do a whatever name, Tubman, episode where Doctor Who's kind of in the background, And that's kind of what happened to her. She just ended up kind of being in the background, like one of many. Which I'm like, the name of the show is Doctor Who. Like, if I can't be a god, I don't want to live. What's the point of living for a few decades? You need at least a millennium to get your bearings. Technically, the Doctor is the precursor of the Time Lord species themselves. The Doctor comes from a completely different set reality. They used the Doctor for his regenerations to create the Time Lord species. I tuned out after Smith. Capaldi was good. A bit grim, frankly. Like, a bit grim. And honestly, I think the thing that really, really hurt the Doctor Who series is that the fellow, I forget his name offhand, but the fellow that wrote the episode Hush, he became the head writer. And because of the nature of the show, so his ideas became somewhat ubiquitous, and the show kind of became a bit samey. Like, Hush was brilliant. Like, Hush was a brilliant episode. Hush was literally the first Doctor Who episode I watched. And so I really fell in love with Doctor Who right off the hop. And the... Is that the name of that episode, or is that the... Anyway, it's the one with the weeping angels. If you're a Doctor Who fan, you know the one I'm talking about. David Tennant episode. But this guy became the head writer, and then everything kind of became like that, and everything became very samey. Blink, that's the one. Blink. Yeah, Hush is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Also brilliant. Like, they should have replaced him. Like, if you're going to be replacing the actor Doctor Who with a degree of regularity, you should replace the head writer with that same degree of regularity. Because I think the thing that really, really hurt Doctor Who is that kind of sameness, that it didn't get new ideas or new thoughts or new blood or any of that, and everything became sort of through this very particular lens. And initially that particular lens was interesting and did have kind of interesting perspectives and interesting kind of stuff. But over time, that becomes normalized and becomes the same. And then you're like, okay, it's another one of these things I've seen before. Right? Like, a show that has managed to keep itself fresh going into its 6th season now, and I'm surprised by it, honestly, is Rick and Morty. That the current season that's going on is actually, I think, probably the best season. Which is pretty impressive, considering that the season that preceded it was actually not that great. That usually what happens to shows is you get the first season is excellent because it's like this labor of love, and they're just exploring the space, and so there's like a freshness to every decision that gets made, and everything is new, and the concepts are new. The idea of interdimensional travel, the idea of space exploration, exploring who Rick is and who Morty is within that kind of space, it's all very new and interesting, and you haven't really seen it before. And then the second, so the first season is usually like this really big labor of love. That's why the first movies are like The Matrix 1 was good and The Matrix 2 and 3 sucked. And then, oh yeah, of course they did. Yeah, of course they did. Are you talking about Rick and Morty with this? With the 2 or 3 season bulk season? Yeah, I mean, like, they'll let these guys make as many as they want. Like, even bad Rick and Morty is still some of the best television, right? It's still some of the best television. And the only complaint that I've ever heard about Rick and Morty that makes it so that people won't watch it is that they hate Rick. And I kind of look at them and I say, like, that's kind of, you kind of are. Like, you kind of should respect or hate Rick. Like, that's kind of the thing, is that the whole point is that you're supposed to recognize Rick in yourself. And everyone has a little bit of Rick and everyone has a little bit of Morty. That Rick and Morty are like every men in their own way, even as Rick is like the smartest man in the universe. Like, even as that's the case, you still kind of you see the self-loathing, you see that self-destructive part of what Rick is, and you recognize it in yourself. And you're not supposed to like Rick. That Rick is fascinating as a character and as an individual, and what his desires are, and why is he even with his family? Like, why does he even care? And how does a person who has the burden of this kind of intelligence deal with his own mortality? These sorts of questions. And so they went through the first season, and then the second season was even better because they had finally kind of established themselves and really kicked the ideas up into a new level. And I think really had some breakthrough moments of their own, of like, oh wait, if there's a multiverse and this exists, then this means that this can happen, and that's really weird and fucked up, and so let's just do it. And then season 3 was good, and then season 4 and 5 kind of got like okay, but very just kind of like paint by numbers almost, where everything was just like, because you can do anything, then just do anything, and then that's good enough, and nothing needs to be about anything. But now they're in this season, and every episode is a hit. Every episode it completely works. They want to talk about something interesting. They want to talk about something thematically. They achieve the storytelling in a really, really excellent way, and it makes me excited about what they're going to continue doing, because like a show like Rick and Morty, I sort of expect to. We sort of expect a show like that to kind of coast after a while, you know? Like, you think about like a show like Friends, for example. Friends is a good one to talk about because everybody knows it, right? Like, Friends began to coast pretty hard after, I'd say after Chandler and Monica got married. Right? It really coasted after that. Like, all of the storylines became very much like, well, why don't we have this happen? Like, why don't we have, sure, Phoebe's pregnant, sure. Like, why don't we have Ross get married again and then have that blow up because he actually loves Rachel? Why don't we have Joey and Rachel hook up for a bit? Why don't we have the here's a boyfriend for Phoebe, you know? Like, it was very like very coasting, not really trying to come up with good ideas, just taking the like really low hanging fruit style ideas and presenting them to us. And the only reason we kind of went along with it is because we as a people loved these characters, and so we're just like, okay, sure, let's go. But like, I remember my ex and I, several years ago, but we did a rewatch of Friends because we were like, yeah, we love Friends. And basically after Chandler and Monica get married, we continued watching, and we were like, oh, these are bad. Like, these episodes, they became really, really bad. Friends is like Seinfeld thought its characters were good. If Seinfeld thought its characters were good people, yeah. I'm actually going through Seinfeld right now, and Seinfeld's great. And I think that, like, what's so funny about Seinfeld is that the final episode, like, everyone was, hey, Major, how you doing? But no one told you life was gonna be this way. Like, the final episode of Seinfeld got, like, universally panned and, like, universally... like, kind of shit on. I think nobody really liked it. But I feel like it was like a really interesting commentary on itself. That in a very kind of big way, well, it's a meta commentary on itself. Like, that's what the finale became. It became this, like, who are these people really? And how do they stand up? Are they good people? And in a way, it's like Seinfeld and those guys were saying, like, hey, these people who you've been living with and have been enjoying and have been relating to are kind of shitty. What does that say about ourselves, and what does that say about our culture? And what's really noticeable going through Seinfeld is this understanding, like, everybody in Seinfeld is shitty. It's everybody in Seinfeld was a shitty person, you know? And that, like, if somebody would have a problem, and even if the solution to the problem was very easy, people wouldn't do it. Like, everybody was shitty to each other all the time on that show. Like, nobody does anybody any favors. Nobody tries to help anybody else, right? And I feel like in a way they wanted to do that final episode that way in order to de-glorify themselves or de-glorify the characters. I think that that's a good way of saying it. That I think that someone like Seinfeld is pretty aware that these characters can become sort of bigger than themselves and bigger than the show itself, and can kind of carry on in lore, and then be thought of as something to aspire to. And I really do think that someone like Seinfeld and probably someone like Larry David is probably sitting there being like, you shouldn't look up to these people. Like, you shouldn't look back on this and think fondly of these people. Like, that's not what this is about. You should not be trying to live your life this way. You should not be looking at George and Jerry and Elaine and think to yourself, that's what that's what I'm aspiring to be. And I think they wanted to give the viewers a bad taste in their mouth on purpose. That's what I really think that they wanted to do. So that maybe you would look back on Seinfeld and think that was good comedy, and I found it enjoyable and relatable to go through it comedically, but I'm not aspiring to be those people. I don't want to live the life of Jerry Seinfeld or of George Costanza, right? And I just think they wanted to kind of, I think they wanted to de-sanctify it. It was like an exorcism. That's how I've come to understand it. It was like a self-exorcism that they committed on that show. Just saying, no catharsis here, guys. No happy ending. No little, like, thing. None of that. These people were shitty. We all had fun here. But if you're trying to find meaning here, and I think that that's the final brilliance of that episode, is that fundamentally they were saying, even within the confines of the show itself, because the show was always very meta, right? Like, they literally had Jerry Seinfeld do a pilot of Jerry, the show about nothing. Well, if it's really a show about nothing, then we're going to blow it away into smoke, because it's about nothing. And so we're not going to give you the little land at the end. Jerry and Elaine are not going to say I love you. They're not going to connect at the end. We're going to make that a point. Jerry and George and Kramer and them, it's not happily ever after. That life is fraught with difficulty and turmoil. And they're left in a position of difficulty and turmoil. Their life kind of turned upside down. And so in a way, it's them taking the whole thing and being like, this is a show about nothing. So, thanks for watching. Sandman Season 2 has been greenlit? Yeah, of course. They've got. I don't think they made it through. Did they make it through the first volume? I think that season 1 was literally the first volume. And how many volumes are there? How many volumes of Sandman? 10. Yeah, 10. So, like, there you go. You've got 10 seasons. Right? I actually don't know if the season which volumes were season 1 of Sandman. Pretty sure it was only the first. Oh no, it was 1 and 2. Okay, so they've got 5 seasons. And if they're smart, they'll keep it that way. The Orpheus part's going to be depressing for sure. Season 2 will be the real test for sure. Like season 1, they did a decent job. They did a good job, but in many ways, it's like the pilot. You know, in many ways, it's like, oh, does this make the transition? Does this happen? Right? And yes, the answer is obviously yes. And they've greenlit season 2. And now I think is where it's going to get really interesting, because now we're going to see if they can resist what seems to be this overwhelming urge, this absolutely overwhelming urge to, quote unquote, add to the subject material. There just seems to be this absolute, like, built-in, like, once you become an executive producer or producer, you're in this stuff, you simply cannot look at the source material and say, let's take that source material and put it on the screen and honor the source material. There just seems to be something that exists within the ethos of these storytellers where that is repugnant to them. They just become incapable of humbling themselves or removing their own ego from the conversation, where they have to. And it seems like it's an absolute need, that if they don't do it, it will result in their death. Death was in season 1, you bet. And they need to, quote unquote, make it their own. And they need to put in additions and change things and alter the fundamental fabric of the story. And this goes well beyond just simple, like, race swap or gender swap or any of that kind of stuff. Like, race and gender swap, especially in the Sandman lore, I'm, like, down. I'm completely down. And this goes into, like, the fundamental structure of what happens in your story. And it seems like storytellers just cannot do it. That they just look at and it seems like it's the primary question for a lot of these guys. Of how do we make it so that this is different? That it is not the original story. It is a new story that is different and, quote unquote, ours. And to me, that's what's going to be, because they don't need to change a goddamn thing. And I think that if they do, I think that that's deeply offensive, considering the material they actually have. Right? Like, the Sandman series, it is like, in my view, is embedded in the lore and the storytelling that it represents. That Neil Gaiman did a very good job of connecting these characters to old stories, to old myths and legend, and to the degree that they are interwoven in many respects. That and watching the first season really highlighted something I've always come to believe about the first couple of volumes of Sandman, is that he was always doing that Like, sending Orpheus to hell is a way to connect the Christian lore and the Christian mythos to this universe. But it's very ham-handed's not the right way of saying it, but it's very abrupt. It's very much like, that's what I want to do. I don't want to be subtle about it. I don't want to introduce a character and like have them come in. I want Orpheus in a duel to the death with Lucifer. That's what I want. Right? So it's very much like, these two forces are gonna collide. But as the story goes on, it gets much, much more delicate, much more subtle, much more elegantly done, and also the initial volumes of Sandman, there was a lot of pressure on Neil Gaiman to keep him rooted in the DC universe, right? So that's why you had John Constantine, who they did a gender swip with John Constantine, which I thought that she did a wonderful job, actually. I thought that they got, I forget her name, but she did a really great job playing Constantine. And, but now we're going to go into the stuff that I think Neil Gaiman really wanted to write and really was like excited to write, and what drew him to the story in the first place. And he's allowed to disconnect from the quote unquote DC universe, and he doesn't need to have like the old superheroes or the supervillains or any of that kind of stuff. They don't need to be in the story, and he can go off and be dealing with gods and legends and old Greek stories and all this kind of stuff. Like he's really cut loose. And it's I'm very excited for it, so long as they don't fall for the trap that all of these storytellers seem incapable of avoiding, which is this burning, ego-driven desire to change that which need not be changed. Like, there's no reason to do it, but they do it every time. Like, does anybody actually have an example of like a book or a comic book that actually makes the transition from the page to the screen without having fundamental changes to the very fabric and the very nature of the story? See, it seems impossible. And it seems so impossible that it's like a phenomenon that should be analyzed and discussed. Like, what is that? How is that this story is so popular and so loved and is making so much money that we want to put it on the screen, but we're going to change it? The only thing that I can come down to is just like cock-swinging ego. Just literally just a dude who exclusively thinks with the head of his cock, maybe his balls, just being like, if I don't change this fundamentally, then why was I even here? Then I don't really exist. Batman Year One, the movie, was basically a shot-for-shot recreation of the comic. All right, we got one. I can believe that. There you go. Like, and it seems to go. So if it's a shot-for-shot recreation of the comic, because I don't mind if they do like different shots and do different kind of stuff like that. Like, that's fine. But it like, there are structural story moments. Like, what's one that I'm like thinking that is so egregious? Like Watchmen. The one that I keep thinking about is Watchmen. And the story moment that they took out, that they changed, that I thought was really offensive, like it really offended me, wasn't the alien. That the original story of Watchmen, there was an alien creature that like spawned into reality, and that was what they used as the excuse to like go to war or whatever, unify the species. That was the justification, right? So instead they changed that into, they pinned everything on Dr. Manhattan, which I was like, oh, okay, like, I get it. Like, you don't want to put in another, 30 minutes to an hour of story in order to explain this alien when you can just sort of pivot it over here, make it nice and clean. Sure. No, the thing that they did that I thought was really, really unforgivable was in the comic, after the event is over, right? And Ozymandias has completed his objectives. Dr. Manhattan, spoiler alert, but I mean, come on. Dr. Manhattan kills Rorschach. And then there's a scene where Ozymandias is standing by himself in his own chambers, and Dr. Manhattan comes to him, and they have a very brief exchange, and then Ozymandias says to Dr. Manhattan, to John, did I do the right thing? Because he knows that John is essentially a god and can see through time and space. And John smiles at him and leaves. And the final shot is of Ozymandias kind of looking over his shoulder, his face downcast, not elated, not joyful, but full of concern and worry for the future, and of guilt and shame that perhaps what he has done will not work the way that he perceives it to work. And because they omitted this scene, and because they chose to omit that scene, it turns Ozymandias into a madman. It drains his humanity. It drains everything out of him, and shifts him away from being a human being with an idea to being just a villain, just an archetypal caricature. And when I first saw it, I began talking about that, the omission of that, and people would kind of hand wave me away and be like, no, it's still a good movie, it still has that kind of stuff. And the more and more I think about it, the more I'm like, no. That moment is it's critical to the entire piece, to the entire story. That removing it, I think, absolutely ruins it to me. It would be the same as if at the end of Snow White you just omitted the scene where Prince Charming came and kissed Snow White and she woke up. To me, it's that. It's the complete culmination of all of the events of the film. That the villain wins, but is left in turmoil. And without that moment, and the moment of being denied, that moment of helplessness, of being denied knowledge of the truth of what's to come, he's left to deal with his own hubris. And so I worry that Sandman is going to have exactly the same kind of things happen to it, where these seemingly small, insignificant moments, these seemingly small, insignificant character moments, are going to be simply done away with because they're not seen as valuable or important, when I think that they are absolutely crucial to the fundamental fabric of the story. And we're just living in this period of time where we don't really have that many storytellers. That the people who are making movies and television and all this kind of stuff are just making carnival rides for the most part. And Sandman is so special Not just special in that it is a story, right? Because there's so few actual stories being told. Everything's just a roller coaster or a carnival ride. All the Marvel movies, all the Disney stuff, all of that has just become carnival rides. Like, I agree with Martin Scorsese on this, that there isn't really cinema anymore. It's just kind of roller coaster rides. And not only is Sandman a real, honest to God, true story that we can really grab onto, and so that makes it special. But it's a story that's embedding itself into the fabric of our historical storytelling. That when we talk about something like Western civilization, right? When these right-wing detached lunatics talk about Western civilization, well, it'd be very surprised to find out that what they were thinking of was the Iliad, or Metamorphosis, or any of those Grecian plays, and so what we have in front of us and what we have to look forward to with Sandman is not only a good story well told, unless they insist on ruining it. Not only do we have a good story well told, but we also have a culture moment. We also have a moment where honest to God, genuine culture is going to happen. Like, that to me is something to open your eyes about, with like a startling recognition that there is actually an author that is going to have televised a show that might actually induce culture. How refreshing, how unique, how interesting. And all they have to do, if they don't want to ruin it, is tell the fucking story. And they just don't seem capable of doing it. It just seems like their cocks and their balls get in the way. And they've got to insist that I matter more than the story. That my ego and the gigantic enormity of my importance should supersede the story that we're about to tell. I hope Sandman's good, man. Season 1 was good. It was good. And I'm excited. I'm excited for the future seasons because I know that the story itself gets better. That's what's so exciting. Is that usually season 1 is like the best of it. That's usually what happens, right? That season 1 or movie 1 is the best of it, and then you're just kind of going through momentum and like living in that kind of way. But I know for a fact that the story gets better. And then it just keeps going up. And just right at that moment where you start to wonder, like, okay, like, where could this possibly go? Where can like, if they keep telling these stories, they're going to start jumping the shark. Like, right when you think that they might begin jumping the shark, that's when Gaiman walks away from the project and just says, that's it, we did it. So I'm hype. I'm very, very hype. That's what we've been saying, Adam. We've been talking about film and television. At one point, we were talking about internet pornography, which really made everybody quiet in the chat. Just quietly hemming and hawing on the chat. Nobody wants to chime in on the nature of internet pornography in the society. I'm shocked by that. All right, guys. I hope each and every one of you has a great weekend, man. I'm heading into Capitalism. Gonna be working my tail off. Especially as we go into Christmas. We got the Christmas trees coming in, so that's going to make it really, really busy. Adam. Thanks for the laugh, bud. I really appreciate that. I hope you all have a beautiful weekend. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking through quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.